under public comments, what I'd like to do is impose a limit of 30 minutes total for public comments. And what we would do is give precedence to residents of Plymouth, taxpayers of Plymouth, if they happen to own property here but don't reside here. And then we could open it up to everybody if that 30 minutes isn't gone. So, food for thought. Please think about that, other than your thoughts. Any other board concerns? Public comments. So again, I'll remind everybody, if you want to address the board, please come to the podium. So where you can take accurate notes. The comments are for the board. You're limited to 5 minutes. So we'll start there.
Thank you, Jerry. I'll try to be on my best behavior. And Bree, may I borrow that the Weinkaufner document that I just gave you? Thank you. I invited Craig and Julie Sautner to come up from Plymouth, Pennsylvania, and to testify as to, they're having to deal with contaminated water since 2008, when the Cabots started drilling in that area. And at the same time, 33 other families were contaminated and 9 square miles of Plymouth. And apparently they still are having problems. EPA has looked at tests recently or looked at their own tests, and they're saying that it's safe to drink, and yet their inspectors don't want to drink the water themselves. And Dr. Ron Bishop has looked at, he's a SUNY Oneonta chemistry professor, and he says that their test results are questionable. We also have Dr. Catherine Weinkaufner, who's agreed to come over from the Hudson Valley, and she's a PhD hydrogeologist, and she has been a petroleum geologist for 16 years and a consulting hydrogeologist for 25 years. And she has a page here, which you may have seen on her expert qualifications. And her 331-page PhD dissertation was on deformation of subsurface Silurian and Devonian rocks of the southern tier of New York State. And her MA thesis was quantitative analysis of the Herkimer Formation, Upper Silurian, in the subsurface of central New York State. That was published in the New York State Museum and Science Service Bulletin in 1981. She's published a number of relevant professional papers, and I want to urge you to regard her as an expert and allow her a bit more than 5 minutes. I know it's been a concern of the board, the issue of takings and the possibility of lawsuits. Mary Jo Long wrote a paper on this, in which she says, in summary, all property in this country is held under the implied obligation that the owner's use of it shall not be injurious to the community, and there is no compensation for limiting that type of use of property. And second point, a taking claim does not apply if the property can be used for other purposes, even if those uses are not as profitable. She goes on to say the Fifth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution provides certain protections to persons, including the protections. In the protections is the phrase, nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. But she says, what if the government, say through a town zoning law or state law, chooses to ban gas drilling without taking over the title to the property where gas companies and gas leaseholders expect to drill for gas? She says, in that case, or she asks, are governmental laws that restrict the use of the land by restricting a profit-making opportunity, a taking, when actual ownership does not change. And she goes on to cite some cases that basically establish that the answer is no, that they're not regarded as a taking. Also, Helen Schlotze addressed the same concern that was stated in the paper in a recent article, where she pointed out that only 2 towns have been sued, and over 100 towns have adopted bans or moratoria. The towns sued had bans, not moratoria. The town of Dryden now has a pro bono litigation systems, and many other firms are interested in helping towns assert their rights. So a lawsuit is not necessarily an onerous burden. It's not, would not necessarily, there's no indication that it has bankrupted either of these 2 towns, and Dryden is actually not only has the benefit of pro bono consulting lawyers, Helen and David Schlotze, but now they have the benefit of a litigation lawyer on a pro bono basis. Oh, it's 5 minutes? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public comments? Yes, ma'am.
I'm here to tell you we have to watch our corner by stating that residents should speak first. I believe if you do your research, that's in violation of the open meetings law. Anyone can come to a public meeting and no one has to give their name or where they live. So by restricting comments first, the first speakers to residents, you're requiring that person to identify where they live. So I think possibly you should research this. The Open Meetings is an office, New York State government office in Albany. And the other thing I want to address is the issue of public health. After many years of poverty, I moved to New York City, lived like an immigrant, saved my money, came back and renovated my house. And I had a bookcase that hadn't been touched in about 20 years. So I started to dismantle it, take down books one by one. And then I found all these piles of sunflower seeds that the mice had squirreled away, well, moused away, and they'd hidden the seeds. And in amongst the seeds, I found several turquoise-colored tiny rock-like things similar to the small stones one finds at the bottom of a fish tank or a bulb hunter. But I knew they were decon, mouse and rat poison that the mice had found under my kitchen sink, where every fall I put out open boxes of decon to keep rodents away. Like the seeds, the mice had carried these pretty bits of poison to the bookshelf to tide them over in the cold months. Obviously, they did not know the danger in eating them, the slow and painful death that would follow their ingestion. Seeing the turquoise bits today made me think of people who lease their land to the natural gas companies. Many must be seeking immediate release from financial worry, and even delights that come from a greater cash flow in the household. They and others are looking also to secure a comfortable old age, and perhaps to provide for their children's future. Like the mice, these people put great trust in their decision in what to store for the future. But like the mice, people who decide to lease their land do not know what they are getting into. And then I go on to discuss the various positive financial aspects from it, and these financial rewards may come to pass. Other rewards to landowners looking toward the future may not be rewards at all, but more like landmines left after a war. Like the bits of decon, natural gas drilling, hydrofracking, may poison water, land, and air, which in turn will poison the landowners, their families, their pets, the birds in the air, and the peepers and crickets on the ground, as well as their neighbors. Death may not arrive quickly, or from such obvious sources as with and from decon, but fracking fluids and air pollution will certainly take their toll. I've heard that when warned about the hazards of fracking fluids, some landowners say they will just leave the area, move away. In that case, everyone should recall the words of the 17th century Englishman, John Donne. No man is an island, entire of itself. Every man is a piece of the continent, a part of the main. If a clod be washed away by the sea, Europe is the less. as well as if a promontory were, as well as if a manner of thy friends or thine own were. Any man's death diminishes me, because I am involved in mankind, and therefore never send you to know for whom the bell tolls, it tolls for thee. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
I'm Jeff Dorsey. As far as the gentleman said the EPA wouldn't drink the water, what they said was they didn't want to drink out of a gallon jug, they wanted a glass. And this vertical and horizontal fracking, what's going on around here, they use vertical fracking. They use the exact same fluids that they use in horizontal fracking. And there's no problems here. And also, I want to submit this
To the board for your conflict of interest.
That's all I want to say.
Thank you. Any other public comments?
I'm Alan Strong, I live here in Plymouth. A couple of years ago, I came home late in the afternoon, there was a gentleman out in front of my house measuring a pole, utility pole, for putting in, I believe, a cable. And I wasn't too concerned about that, but I noticed he had West Virginia plates on his vehicle. Had a pleasant conversation. He left me with an interesting thought. He asked the question, why don't I see a lot of water tanks around people's homes here? What do you mean? Well, in West Virginia, the water that we had, that we haven't lost through coal mining, has been made undrinkable through gas development. So they've enacted local rural water districts, and you pay for them. Is that how we want to live here? Point two, the hydrofracking liquids that are used in wells that are in here, is there a material safety data sheet on file? Any chemicals that any contractor carries, I believe he has to have a material data safety sheet. If there isn't one, why isn't there? If it's so secret, why should it be used if we can't be told what's in it? Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, it's back there, right?
Thank you.
Boyd Lynn Bates Road. I'm presenting to the board again some more information, some sites that you can go on to receive more information regarding a compilation of case studies done from individuals throughout the United States, not just in New York, not just in Shenango County, or not just in Boone County, but throughout the United States that have been case studies of where people have been harmed, sickened, died due to exposures from the chemicals that have been hydrofracking into their ground, in their areas, on their property, or near their property. These are sites that you can go on to get complete truths. It's not half-truths. This was posted on the internet as far back as the 10th. All right? Thank you.
Mary.
I'm here tonight just to give the board an update on the closeout package for their construction project. And currently, right now, we have all the paperwork from the contractor, which is all the bonds, lease liens, and everything else. The only thing that's left remaining is the final as-built drawings that I have to finish up, which I should have done in the next week or two. And the final payment application, which we can't finalize until we come up with the final change order amount, which includes liquidated damages. And I think the only other change order is the deduction for the telephone switches that were replaced. And what I'd like to do is set up a meeting with the board, possibly next week, to sit down and have a final project construction meeting to review everything and hopefully walk away with an agreements on the final change order.
you, I should have been earlier on the agenda, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Do you have some dates that you want to throw out here for the property meeting plan?
That's the 22nd, 23rd, or the 24th. Is that okay? And as far as the time,
As I did note earlier, when I talked about the letter from our contractor, at some point this evening, we will need to go into executive session. And we'll discuss that.
okay, so
If you want to stick around, and when we come back out, we'll discuss it then, or I can follow if you want to.
okay, that'll work. Anything else, fine.
You want to call, okay. So the 22nd, 23rd, 24th.
Yes.
And you're looking to review final
Change order,
change order.
so that way we can finalize the payment, the final payment application, but close out all the paperwork for the project.
And just so it's clear, that change order may include liquidated damages.
Right.
Right? Just clear. I will let you know.
Thank
Again,
you.
my apologies. You're welcome to stay.
Thanks, Derek.
Thank you.
Other public comments? Yes, sir.
Yeah, my name's Gene Cummings, from Plymouth. I'll turn something into the board. Total the production taxes that the local gas company paid into the towns and counties and the fire departments. Just for the 6 wells that were in Plymouth, the Norwich School District got $86,781.50. The town got $35,624. The fire district got $5,148. A total of all Shenango County was $657,141.86. As far as the animals being harmed and the locations being built, the pipelines being built, the rough grouse numbers are up the highest they've been in 15 to 20 years. Woodcock are through the roof. I don't know if any of the wild pheasants are coming back. I don't know if you can attest to that or not. or-
We don't have a habitat here. 23, about 12 in the county, from Norwich to Green, would be the best habitat we have in the county.
Okay.
That would be the best.
There's anti-windmill signs on River Road going between Smyrna and Randallsville. If you don't want windmills or you don't want the power lines, everybody's against the power lines. The old Edison plant over at Baybridge, we got natural gas for that, and eliminate a lot of these power lines coming down from Canada. Let the scientists and the elected officials do their job. I believe in the 30 minutes public comment just for this, for the people in the township. If there's any time left over, let the other people speak. 5 minutes is more than enough for an individual to talk. If you can't do it in 5 minutes, you don't need to be here. Mary Jo Long, her attorneyship, I mean, they enacted a road use law over in Afton, was thrown out 30 days later because of the illegality of it. There was a lawyer brought in here to speak on the moratorium. I'm sure he wasn't here on a pro bono case. I had another lady talk about killing mice with decon. The chemicals that people spread on their lawns and trying to kill animals is way worse than anything that goes in these bugs. Thank you.
Other public comments? Yes, sir.
Good evening. Here we are again in assemblage as town and county residents. a familiar repetition of poison wells and a conspiracy theory. A PA family telling us our water is poisoned, but the PADP tested it and said, no, it's not. So then they tell us the PADP was bought out by oil and gas. The tests are no good. At the Binghamton EPA hearings, they flunked their brown jugs of water. Please, they asked, come test our water. It is poison. So the EPA goes to Dimmick, not only testing their water, but 60 other family wells too. The tests come back. All 61 wells are in compliance with the Federal Safe Drinking Water Act and the limits. No fracking chemicals detected. Now they say the EPA bar is too low. On a video shot in their home, they accused President Obama of conspiring with the EPA to present false witnesses on their testing because Obama wants drilling. I wonder, will this make Josh Fox's next propaganda film? They bring in their own anti-drill experts who sound convincing but are easily debunked. New York State would be neglecting its responsibility of due diligence by asking towns to regulate the gas industry. Bans and moratoriums only mean one thing at town levels, and that is delay. And every delay means another farm is lost, another bank forecloses on a home, another job opportunity is lost. Surely, you must be tired of this semi-monthly traveling circus that's coming to our town, towns all over upstate New York. There could be an end to it. It's not signing a ban or a moratorium. It's not saying you're in favor of drilling. It's not saying you're in favor of gas. It's a resolution that will simply state you're willing to let the state of New York complete its studies and its research, that you're willing to let the state do its job with the vast resources available to our DEC. The state has the money, the time, and the resources. This town board does not. Sign the resolution you are going to be given tonight, and it will end this circus. I urge you not to make victims of New York landowners by making reason of the misinformation campaign aimed at us and aimed at you by Ithaca attorneys. Slodge is pushing for bans. I urge you not to make victims of New York landowners on the false claims of PA litigants who are still living at the homes they claim are poisoning them for 4 years now. One even building a 7,000 square foot home on the very water source he said Cabot ruined. A resident in this town stated he was suckered into signing a lease. That is equivalent to me saying I had a choice of parents at birth. He renewed a lease in 2007 and 2008. He said he was forced to do so. I'd like to know who twisted his hand, who made him sign that lease. Was it the gas companies or was it Ben Franklin? Thank you.
Thank you. I didn't get your name.
Victor Furman.
Other comments?
I'm Vera Scroggins. I'm from Susquehanna County, and I'm here to just let you know some of the things we're going through. I'm not a litigant. I live in the county, and I've been watching what's happening to our county for 4 years, and I'm part of a citizens watch group, and I've been videotaping and giving people tours of what's happening, and I'd like to invite you all to come for a tour. I've had all kinds of elected officials and media and people from all over the world come to see what we're living with and dealing with and what it's really like. So when you actually see it, it's quite different than when you're actually reading about it. And you can see how close to the homes the wells are and how it takes over a year on the wells to be completed, and they're still dealing with it. The traffic, the noise, the diesel fuel, all the digging. Now we have pipelines going in everywhere. So when they're finishing and they're trying to finish the wells, then we have to put pipelines in. So there's a lot of digging about for that, up and down the hills. So, if you wanna know also what's happening as far as DEP has on their sites, all the violations of what happens on these sites, so you can look them up. I have here papers if you need help to find it. But I looked up one company that's near me, I'm in the northern part of the county, it's WPX Gas, and just for a little over a year, I looked up and it was 34 pages of violations. It was about 13 months that I requested, and you can just get it right off the site and print it off of there. And you can see some of the violations, and some of them are defective casings, which we've had again and again. And you can just read, like here's one, it'll say failure to properly store, transport, process, or dispose of residual waste. That would be one. And that's just for one site, and they'll have a whole group of them. This is one site called the Hayes site. The site is named after the owners, and this is a WPX site. Failure to take all necessary measures to prevent spill, inadequate diking, potential pollution. Failure to adopt pollution prevention measures required or prescribed by the DEP by handling materials that create a danger of pollution. Pit and tanks not constructed with sufficient capacity to contain pollutional substances. So that's one site, and you can read one after another similar to that. So if you want to live with that and have that next to your homes and your families, this is something that's becoming more and more difficult. Then after they do the sites, then they do the compressor stations. Right now, we're having compressor stations every 2 to 4 miles. And the compressor stations are allowed to have a certain amount of pollutants. And it's tons of pollutants that are allowed, and they're like VOCs, volatile organic compounds, which have been linked to elevated levels of cancer and neurological health issues. Then they're allowed tons of nitrous oxides. And this can cause all kinds of eye, nose, throat, and lung irritation, shortness of breath, and forms ozone. You can also have tons of sulfur dioxide, and that causes problems. There's formaldehyde, there's carbon dioxide, there's methane. So this is coming from the compressor stations. Right now, they're building one near me. It's right across the road from the farmhouse, about 400 feet. They think this is okay. How would you like to look, what was a farm? This was all open land. They were giving us vegetables from that farm, like a year ago. Now the farmers sold it to the gas companies for a compressor station, for pipelines, and for a gas well. So now the farmhouse is across the road, and I have pictures and I take videos of it, but you can come and see it. And they're looking at this. This is now in front of them. And this will be making noise. It makes noise 24/7, besides the emissions 24/7. And God knows when there could be an explosion, because we already had an explosion. We had one now in Springville, in the southern part of our county, in March, the end of March. And there was a fire, and that happened, and the compressor station is only 1.5 years old. And that shook the homes within a half a mile. They were shaking down to the walls, and the people felt it, and the families felt it. So that was an explosion. So how would you like to have it across from you? And this is what they only have minimal setbacks. So 400 feet sounds like a lot to you, it's not a lot. In this town of Dimmick, it's only 30 square miles. We have 150 wells, and they're still building. This is just the beginning. It's 4 years. How many more will there be? There's never an end. It's every quarter of a mile, every half a mile. You'll see one well after another. Is this what you would like on your roads? And for your children to bike along, when you go walking, this is what you're going to see. And if you need to know about how much production goes on, that's also on the DEP site. You can pick up production units. Here is like Pennsylvania oil and gas production reporting. Every well is listed from 2008 to now 2011. Every 6 months, 12 months, they'll show you, and it drops dramatically. So do you want to sacrifice your land, your county, for 5 years of gas? I don't think it's worth it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stuff to the town clerk, please.
Well, my name's Fred Gaylord, and I live down in Green, and I don't own any property in the town of Plymouth. And as far as you 5 people here are making a decision on whether to frack this gas or not, the citizens of New York are paying the DEC a lot of money to make studies on this gas business. And when they come out with their final rules on this gas business, whether they're gonna allow it or not, if they do allow it, I would say that the people that own the land in this town of Plymouth should make up the decision what they wanna do with their land. Not outsiders, not out-of-staters. The people that spent the money to buy this land, and they should govern this town of Plymouth. So I wouldn't be too quick to make any rules and regulations that might not even work when the state comes out with their final ruling. So I'm not saying for it or against it, but I can't believe you 5 people, I mean, it's gotta be everybody in this township make the decision. That's what I have to say.
Thank you. I'm some of the, yeah, the council, I will go back there.
Mary Ann Leeson. I have no idea why these people. I'm originally from Ohio, and when I grew up, the Cuyahoga River caught on fire. Remember that? Everybody was laughing about it, and it was fine as far as the DEP was concerned. After all, that was a river, it wasn't supposed to catch on fire. And also, I just want to mention, I have a cousin who can't sell her land. She and her husband worked so hard to earn that land, and now, because of fracking that's going on around them, they can't sell that land. This is work, this is money that they put into it, and what's
Thank you. I promise. Thank you.
This is in reference to the comment that, the 5 gentlemen will be making a decision, and the law, the landowners of the area should decide what goes on with their property. I think the reason that we have people come in from out of state and out of county is because there's a lot going on that we don't know firsthand because it's not happening here. They're coming to share what they know, because once you know, you can't not know. And when you hear what they have to say, you know. So anything that happens as a result of going ahead in spite of what's going on in other places and causing a lot of destruction and illness, you'll have no one to blame but yourselves.
My name is Ann Siegel and I'm from Unadilla. And I'm here because, really to elaborate on the idea that no man is an island, and that what you do here, when that decision comes to you, will affect not only you and the property owners and the residents of your town, and not even just the neighbors of that. You have to consider where the water goes that rolls off your land and your rivers and where it goes. The decisions you make can affect people in Washington, D.C., possibly the whole eastern seaboard. And I want you to know that this isn't just an isolated thing for you. So I want to read to you the names of the towns that have, first of all, first the counties that have enacted county-wide bans on their county land. That's Dutchess, Onondaga, Ontario, Sullivan, Tompkins, and Ulster. Then the towns that have enacted bans are Albany, City of Binghamton, Summerhill, Beacon, Buffalo, Wales, Niagara Falls, Rome, Camillus, Skaneateles, Syracuse, City and Town of Geneva, Cherry Valley, Middlefield, New Lisbon, City of Oneonta, Otsego, Plainfield, Springfield, Bethel, Lumberland, Tustin, Danby, Dryden, Ithaca, Ulysses, and Jerusalem. Then there are towns that haven't enacted bans but have enacted moratoria. And they are Beam, Rensselaerville, Alfred, Moravia, Niles, Scipio, Germantown, Cortlandville, Andes, the Cortlandville one has apparently expired. Andes, Oppenheim, Little Falls, Mannheim, Tenacious, Geneseo, I would call it Lima, but I'm not sure that's how they pronounce it. Livonia, Mount Morris, Nunda, Sparta, Springwater, Lincoln, Brighton, Mendon, Rush, Minden, St. Johnsville, village and town, Ansville, Augusta, Ava, Boonville, Camden, Clinton, Deerfield, Florence, Floyd, Forestport, Kirkland, Marshall, New Hartford, Paris, Remsen, Sangerfield, Steuben, Trenton, Utica, Vernon, Verona, Westmoreland, Whitestown, DeWitt, Elbridge, Marcellus, for which the Marcellus Shale is named, Onondaga, Otisco, Spafford, Tully, Bristol, Canandaigua, city and town, Gorham, Manchester, Naples, village and town, Richmond, South Bristol, Butternut, which was just passed, they just passed their ban a few nights ago, Milford, Oneonta, Schoharie, Waterloo, Wayne, Highland, Caroline, Olives, Rochester, Barrington, Benton, Middlesex, Milo, and Starkey. Those are the ones that have actually enacted either bans or moratoria. And that's a lot of places in New York. These places cannot all think that this is a some kind of conspiracy or some kind of stupid thing to do. Then we also have those where a movement for a ban or moratorium, an organized movement is going on. And they include Almond, Canaseraga, Shenango, Vestal, Genoa, Locke, Sempronius, Big Flats, Horseheads, Van Etten, Columbus, Plymouth, Smithville, Masonville, yeah, that's your Plymouth, Masonville, Sydney, Colden, Ephrata, Stafford, Dodgeville, Salisbury, Avon, Caledonia, Dansville, North Dansville and South Dansville, West Sparta, York, DeRidder, Lenox, Sullivan, Parrington, City of Rochester, Webster, Canajoharie, Fort Plain, Palatine, Vienna, Canadici, West Bloomfield, Burlington, Hartwick, Lawrence, Maryland, Morris, Pittsfield, Unadilla, Westford, Blenheim, Carlisle, Cobalskill, Middleburg, Richmondville, Seward, Sharon, Hector, Bath, Hammondsport, Pulteney, Urbana, Fremont, Owego, Spencer, Enfield, Groton, Lansing, Newfield, Marbletown, New Paltz, Saugerties, Macedon, Arcade, and Italy. That makes 101 communities who think that a ban or a moratorium is the right thing to do.
No, that's not true.
And there is a map.
I have some material for the clerk, but I do have a map that I'd like you to see what I'm talking about. Susan Dorsey. I was hoping that the supervisors would see that map. And here's the rest of this. My name is Susan Dorsey, and I'm here, I'm representing Central New York Landowner Coalition, and all the members in the town of Plymouth, as well as Joint Landowners Coalition covering 17 counties of the Marcellus Shale, and the Shenango County chapter of Concerned Property Rights Advocates. Traveling from Pennsylvania to northwestern Shenango County certainly shows you that these people have an agenda, and it has little to do with life as we know it here in Shenango County. I've been a resident of Shenango County for 30 years. Next, you'll need to get the EPA here to defend their results. These people are making a mockery of municipal law and keeping town officials from conducting actual town business. Town boards in upstate New York are being made to look foolish by indulging them in this nonsense. I've had input from
couple of property owners in the town of Plymouth who are intimidated to come to this meeting tonight. The issue of how to develop our natural resources is a matter upon which town officials have no background. Now they're expected to play catch-up on what they've missed in a haphazard crash course directed by fanatical, regressive extremists who want to rewrite history because they made the mistake of signing a bad lease. As a representative of Plymouth's landowners who are members of the CNY Coalition and who have waited patiently 4 years for a clear path forward from Albany, and who were promised it would be based on science and not small-town politics, we reject the state's abdication of its duties. I ask the Town of Plymouth Board to please join with the towns of Willett, Conklin, Windsor-Colesville, Barker, and others that actually overlie gas-producing shale formations, not the outliers you just heard listed, and pass a resolution without delay stating that you expect the state to do its job and that you gladly would defer to the DEC, the proper state agency which is qualified and staffed to determine the proper course of action with regards to gas development. Thank you.
I'm sorry about that overlooking.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Just let them get
You're up next, how's that?
Okay,
My name is Catherine Weinkaffner. I am a consulting hydrogeologist from the Hudson Valley, and I traveled over here tonight to speak to the board and the people here about the problems that result in the groundwater being contaminated. And first thing I'd like to say is, I think the scenario, if you have long-term development with this horizontal fracking in the Marcellus Shale and the proximity of lots of wells and compressor stations and all this good stuff, what's gonna happen is ultimately you're gonna have a wasteland. Because without water, we cannot survive. I was just having a beautiful drive across the Catskills today and witnessing the agriculture and the farms and the forests and so forth. And if you don't have clean water, we cannot live, we cannot grow, we cannot have dairies, we can't raise beef. Our way of life here is gonna change. You're gonna have a wasteland. I don't know what you do with a wasteland. You know, no amount of money is gonna be able to clean up contaminated water. It just is incredibly expensive. One thing I wanna say is that there are alternative fuels. There are no alternatives for clean water resources. You can put a filter on the water, but then you have water to shower and drink and so forth. But what about if you want to have a garden, or you want to raise crops, or you need water for animals and so forth? You know, you can't clean up enough water to do that. That's the real hazard here. And we don't notice it right away. A little quote from a lady named Kyla Allison, a PhD from the 8 Rivers Council in West Virginia. She says, the damage may not show up for years. The ruination of our water may at first be invisible, and in the end, irreparable. And I think she's right. I think that's the problem right there. If you destroy the water, you know, the money that people get, the town gets, the school district gets, it'll be gone. How are you gonna clean up contaminated water? And how does this water get contaminated? I'll just go through some of the hydrogeological points that I often talk about with another fellow named Paul Rubin. He and I worked together. We were both geologists in the petroleum industry. When this issue came up, now we both work as hydrogeologists in environmental science. We kind of kicked it around. We didn't know which way to go. So we just started accumulating information and looking into the matter. At first, I kind of leaned toward the idea of fracking. Hey, they had started doing that way back when I worked at the Geological Survey in Albany, and it seemed like a really good idea. Hey, make more fractures, get the gas to travel through the formation, would improve things. Until you find out that these fracking fluids are full of volatile organic compounds and other things that we don't even analyze for when we test water. That there are just all kinds of chemicals they put into these. Some of the other problems are, there's already a whole bunch of fractures that extend from the basement up to the surface. When you do fracking and pumping away under high pressure with this water, the only place this stuff can go is to make more fractures, but then that displaces the rocks. So then the fluids under high pressure want to get out, they want to go somewhere. You build this huge pressure field around the well. And what it's going to do is find the path of least resistance, which happens to be to the surface. There have been some studies recently showing that within 10 years, you'll get breakthrough. Well, by 10 years, maybe they're going to be done taking the gas out of the formation. Maybe the gas companies will be gone, and now who is going to pay to clean up this mess? Their contracts are written in really strange ways, and they're written with non-disclosure statements, so that the poor homeowner is the one who is caught in the middle. They're the ones who have no recourse with the oil company or the gas company. The oil companies and gas companies, no responsibilities in terms of clean water, because nice Mr. Cheney made it that way, and Mr. Bush and all their buddies in the Congress. So the individual is stuck. Now, by the time they've gotten their money, they better sell their property and run to Florida, because they're not gonna have anything left here. It's a real serious problem, the water. It's going to come up to the surface, it's gonna get into our streams, it's gonna get into our wells. I don't have any idea why the state legislature thinks they should protect the city of New York's water and the city of Syracuse's water. Hell, we're the people out in the countryside that need a well to have water in your house. I mean, that's just the way it is. So we should be protecting our wells first and looking very, very carefully at this. I don't see a safe way to do this now. Maybe 50 years from now, there will be a safe way, but I don't see it now. So that's my opinion, and I could go on for hours about all the different hydrogeological reasons, but basically that's the situation. Thank you for your time, and congratulations. So that we can see you guys have mouths, or raise up another step and then sit on your chair so we can see out here what you guys look like. And another recommendation, let's put this over here, so that when someone's looking down.
Enough.
Thank
Yes, sir.
Here we go.
Respect, I know you like that.
Craig and Julie Sautner, Dimmick, PA. Craig Sautner, SAUTner. And we were contaminated almost 4 years ago after drilling by Cabot in the area. We've been living with a contaminated well now for almost 4 years. And we've seen what happens when things go wrong with the drilling. This was during even a horizontal well, it was a vertical well. Casing collapsed, contaminated the aquifer. Gas migrated. The former Secretary of the DEP, John Hanger, even admits that's where it came from. Now, people will say, oh, it's all swamp gas, biogenic gas. Cabot will say we didn't do it. We had numerous isotopic tests done on our well, which fingerprints where the gas came from. It is definitely thermogenic gas. I can go to my well pipe and I can put a jug up against it and pull pure methane out of there and light it with a blue flame. Not yellow, solid blue flame. That's pure methane coming right out of my well. Okay? Now, we live like this. We were the first well contaminated. They finally put a system in our house. Talk about trying to clean the water up. They tried to clean it up with a system. My daughter would get in the shower in the morning. She'd have to get out and lay on the floor because she thought she was going to pass out. And methane sucking the oxygen out. Because what happens when you take methane and you heat it up, it goes to the oxygen. Is he talking?
Thinks it's funny?
Hey,
Thinks it's funny that would happen to a kid? Is it that funny?
Yeah.
What are you
That's
talking
sick,
about?
come on, that's sick. He's laughing at my child.
if I hear anybody back there, I'll quiet it down.
Thank you.
Hear
I didn't say a thing.
But please, you're addressing the board, opens.
So,
Thank you.
so she would get out of the shower and lay on the floor because she thought she was gonna pass out from the methane. Okay? My daughter had eczema, rashes, and hives up and down the body. My wife did, and my son did. This is all documented facts. This is with water that has been filtered and still getting this. Why? Because it didn't get all the toxins out of the water, that's why. It might have got the color out of the water, but it didn't get the rest of the chemicals and things out of the water. All right? We've been off that well for over 2.5 years now, and nobody has had a rash since. That's proof enough, I think, right, that it's coming from the water. All right? Now, these people say, oh, well, we got a lease. They're gonna honor the lease here because we have a big land coalition. They're gonna honor it. Well, that's bull, because I got an addendum on my lease that says if they are held responsible for destroying my water, and they are, because I have a letter at home from the DEP holding them responsible for what they did to my water, and that they will restore my water to pre-drilling conditions immediately at their cost. Almost 4 years later, and they haven't done it. Why? Because they can't. And you know what they tell us? We didn't do it. It's all naturally occurring. I have a pre-drill test done by Cabot that shows no methane in my well. I have methane in my well now. And that's coming, and that's after the drilling happened. This is, okay, the DEP talked about the EPA coming into town and testing and everything. Their tests are so bogus. I took 2 tests side by side, one of the neighbors, and I looked at them, and the detect level was set different for different households. Why is that? That should be straight across the board. There should not be any difference in it. And what did they say? There was a chemical in there, benzoylpyrene. I said, is that naturally occurring? And they said, no. I said, well, where did it come from? Well, we don't know. He says, oh, that could have come from car exhaust when we got the water out of the well. Well, if they got that off the water just from, where's the chain of custody? All these tests are bogus then if they have cross-contamination. They said it could have even come from somebody not washing their hands in the lab doing the test. I got this all on video. I mean, come on. That's what's going on. You know why they wouldn't drink the water in my house? Right here. This is water that came out of my well yesterday. Now, would anybody else up there would like to have a drink of that? I know I wouldn't want to drink that water. That's what it is, right there.
He says he'll drink it. Give him a glass. 8 ounces.
Yeah, so you can sue me, Victor? Take it.
No, let him drink it, 8 ounces.
Now, I heard the Sautners, what they had to say. It seems to me the EPA just did their study. They did 4 different studies. Apparently, they did not do the study on their water. Now, for whatever reason, they didn't do it, I don't know, because the EPA says there's nothing the matter with the water. Now, either somebody didn't do the study, or there's something, how can they say there's something the matter with the water when you have a federal agent that is protecting the people, and they aren't listening to them? And then this lady here that is a hydrologist, I listened to her, and I don't know where she got her information, but when she was all done, I heard her make a comment of, that's my opinion. And I'm sorry, in a business like this, we don't use opinions. We use facts, and that's where it's gotta be. You gotta have facts. There's other things that I heard, and I don't understand. They save me money right now, but those 2 things, oh, yes. They said there was a moratorium on all these towns. Well, let me just say, I know of 3 moratoriums, and all 3 of them are being sued. Binghamton, New York.
That's a ban, not a moratorium.
Okay,
Thank you.
Dryden, there's another one, and The one over in?
Middlefield.
Middlefield, yes. They're the only three that I know of, and they're being sued. So with that, thank you. I'm done.
Thank you.
As I stated earlier, at some point we need to go into executive session. I guess for everybody's sake, if the board wants to, we'll hold it up to towards the end. We will come back in public session after that. Right now, let us review the bills, we'll go through them and pay them. Approve them. And date of our next meeting will be June 11th at 6:30. Just to remind everybody, as we're reviewing bills, there's discussion amongst the town board, we need to hear each other, so if there's, once we sign discussions or conversations, please feel free to use the parking lot. Vouchers.